He had lost everything. His power erased, but not his voice.
Die Affäre Röhm habe ich hier deutlich ausgeführt.
The empire collapsed. Cities in ruins. Power gone. And in the silence that followed, a trial began. The world was watching every word, every move, and one man believed he was still in control. State Archives presents a documentary film, The Trial of Hermann Göring. November 1945. The war is over. The guns have fallen silent, and across Europe, the ruins still burn. An empire has collapsed, its power reduced to ash. The fighting has ended, but the consequences remain. In the silence that follows, the world begins to take account, because what was done cannot be undone, and the reckoning is just beginning. This was not just a trial. It was something more. A message, carefully constructed, a warning delivered in silence, not only to those in the room, but beyond it, to the world watching closely, and to history waiting to judge. And at its center sat Hermann Göring, not just a defendant, but a man who had once stood at the height of power, a man who had helped shape the course of a nation and the fate of millions. Now, seated behind glass, he remained composed, watching, waiting, as if the stage were still his. Once, one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany, a man who stood at the center of power, shaping decisions, commanding forces, influencing the course of a nation. Second only to Hitler, his authority was unquestioned, his reach extending far beyond the battlefield, into the very machinery of the Reich. Now, he sat in the dock, no longer commanding, no longer above it all, surrounded, observed, every movement noted, every word weighed, watched by judges, by the world beyond the room, measured in silence, judged not by power, but by what remained. He had lost the war. The victory he once believed inevitable had collapsed into defeat. Lost the Reich, the empire that had defined his power, now reduced to ruin. Lost everything that had given him authority, his command, his influence, his place at the center of it all. But not his belief that he could still control the room, that even here, surrounded, observed, stripped of power, he could shape the narrative, guide the conversation, and bend perception in his favor. From the very beginning, he moved with intention, speaking calmly, deliberately, as if the stage had not changed, only the audience. From the very beginning, Göring took control, not with force, but with presence. His voice, steady, measured, deliberate, each word delivered without hesitation, as if chosen long before he spoke. There was no urgency, no uncertainty, only calm and control. He paused when it suited him, continued when it mattered. Every sentence, structured, every response, calculated, and every word, placed with precision, shaping not just what was said, but how it was understood. He did not deny everything. He chose his ground carefully, conceding what could no longer be hidden, and holding firm where doubt could still be shaped. He reshaped it, not the facts themselves, but their meaning. Actions became necessity, Decisions became duty, orders became responsibility carried out in the name of the state. He spoke not as a man defending himself, but as one explaining the logic of power. Each answer controlled, each response deliberate, turning accusation into justification. And for a moment, it worked. The room listened, the narrative held, the illusion remained intact. Others withdrew, their eyes lowered, their voices fading before they were fully heard. They avoided the moment, shrinking from the weight of it, retreating into silence. The room closed in around them, and they let it. They faded into the background, almost disappearing. But Göring did the opposite. He leaned into it, into the attention, into the scrutiny, as if it were something he could still command. He debated, not defensively, but with confidence, as if the questions were opportunities rather than threats. He deflected, redirecting attention, reframing intent, shifting the weight of accusation into something more controlled, more distant. He even joked, allowing brief moments of ease to cut through the tension, as if to remind the room that he was still at ease within it. Not as a man on trial, not as someone cornered or diminished, but as a man still trying to lead, still asserting presence, still shaping the space around him, as though authority had not been taken, only challenged. For a moment, it seemed possible that the control he once held had not entirely slipped away, that through presence, through words, through careful restraint, he could still shape the room around him. The tension eased, if only slightly. The narrative held, and the illusion remained. But control, even at its strongest, has its limits. It bends, it strains, and under pressure, it begins to fracture. Because beyond the words, beyond the performance, something else was waiting, something he could not command. And soon, those limits would be tested beyond his control, not by words alone, but by evidence that could not be reshaped or ignored. The space he once commanded was beginning to close, and the room was no longer his to guide. The tone shifted, almost imperceptibly at first, but unmistakably. The ease, the rhythm, the sense of control began to slip. What had felt like a performance, carefully managed and directed, was changing. This was no longer a stage he could command, no longer a narrative he could shape. The questions grew sharper, more precise, and with each answer, the distance between control and consequence began to narrow. Leading the questioning was Robert H. Jackson, the chief prosecutor, a man not performing but building a case, measured, precise, unhurried. Each piece fixed him in place. Each answer narrowed the space. There was no room to deflect, no space to reshape. Carefully, deliberately, step by step. He was closing in, and with each moment, the weight of what could no longer be avoided began to settle. Hermann Göring pushed back, tried to redirect the line of questioning, to regain control of the narrative, to reframe, once again, to return to ground he could still shape. But something had changed. The rhythm was different now, slower, more deliberate. and the space he once commanded was no longer his to define. The documents did not shift. They did not bend. They did not answer or explain. They simply remained fixed, unchanged, immovable against every attempt to reshape them. What had once been spoken was now written, preserved, set in place, beyond interpretation or denial. And in that permanence, there was no space left to maneuver, no room to redirect. For the first time, Göring hesitated. Just a moment, barely visible, almost imperceptible, but enough. Enough for the rhythm to break, for the certainty to falter, and for control to begin slipping from his grasp. The rhythm was gone. The steady control he had maintained began to slip. What once felt deliberate now seemed uncertain. Control began to fracture, slowly, from within, not all at once, but in small, barely visible shifts as the structure he relied on started to give way. The room felt it, not in words, but in the silence that followed. A subtle change, difficult to name but impossible to ignore. The shift, the atmosphere tightened, attention sharpened, and the balance began to move. And in that moment, something gave way. The control, the rhythm, the performance he had sustained no longer held. It was enough. Enough for the illusion to break. The performance was over. After that, something changed. Not in a single moment, not with any clear signal, but in a way that settled across the room. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, yet impossible to ignore once it took hold. Not suddenly, but completely. What had felt controlled, measured, almost guided, was no longer the same. The balance had moved, and it would not return. The questions became simpler, direct, unavoidable, stripped of space for interpretation, leaving only what remained, and no way to move around it. No room to redirect. No space to reshape what had already been set in place. Every attempt to move around it narrowed further, leaving less and less to hold on to. The paths Göring had once used were no longer there. He was no longer leading the exchange, no longer guiding the direction. The momentum had shifted, and it would not return. Only responding, answer by answer, step by step, confined within what could no longer be changed. The presence he carried was fading, not suddenly, not with any clear break, but in a way that settled quietly over the room. What had once filled the space now receded, step by step, leaving something thinner, less certain. The weight of authority, the control he had held, no longer reached as far as it once had. And what remained was no longer control. It was something else now. Restrained, confined, held in place by forces that no longer answered to him. The trial continued. Day after day, the process moved forward, not with urgency, but with a steady, deliberate pace that could not be interrupted. Each session added to what had already been established, building layer upon layer, detail upon detail. The room remained the same, the faces, the structure, the routine, but something beneath it had shifted. What had once felt contested now moved toward conclusion. There were no sudden turns, no dramatic reversals, only the slow, methodical progression of a process that had already begun to define its end, and would continue until nothing remained unresolved. Time itself seemed to take on a different weight, measured not in hours, but in what was being set in place, piece by piece. Thank you for watching. This story does not end here. The trial would continue, but for Hermann Göring, the final chapter was already approaching. One last night, one final decision. If you wish to understand what happened next, you may choose to continue. And if you choose to remain, State Archives will be here, exploring history in all its weight and all its quiet mysteries. Until then,